This is Curse Code, and this is part 2 of a small series I'm doing how to set up Photon in your projects and make online multiplayer games. Now, as you can see, I have Photon installed and synced, as you can see by the Photon file. Now I'm going to be creating a new empty game object, and I'm going to be calling it Connect to Photon. And inside of this, I'm going to be making a script called Connect to Photon as well. This is basically going to allow us to check if we are successfully connecting to Photon, then end the loading scene, then go into the lobby where we can create and join servers. Or games, I should say. Now I'm quickly just going to access this script, and first of all we want to get rid of update. And then we want to put photon.pun. This is going to allow us to use all of Photon's functions and other bits and components. We also want to put monobehavior pun callbacks. This is a special Photon class and allows us to use a lot of Photon's like components. Basically, you need this with any script basically that uses Photon, or there can be a lot of errors. Now we want to do photon network.connect using settings. This is going to connect us to Photon. It's not going to connect the players, but it's going to connect us to Photon. It won't connect you to a game or anything, just the servers. Then you want to do public override void on connected to master. This basically happens whenever we connect to Photon. Then we want to do photon network dot join lobby. And lobbies are basically, they're like games, but we're not physically interacting with other people in them. Only people can join and be in them. You don't need to understand them much. They're not a very big deal. All you need to do is just follow this tutorial. And this is the only way I've ever seen them been used. And on join lobby, which basically is pretty explanatory, it happens when we join the lobby. And then, oh, I've forgotten to import scene manager. This allows us to load a scene because we want it to go on to the next scene, the lobby scene, after we know that we've successfully connected to Photon. Then we're going to do scene manager dot load scene. Then you want to put the name of your scene in. And this, of course, loads a scene. And one of my scenes is called Lobby, as I showed you before. Or you might have seen it in the background, as I was showing you the Photon file. Now I've just got to wait for all these to compile. And all good. As you can see, I've run it and it's successfully connected to Photon and it's loaded our lobby scene. Now I'm going to go into scenes, then I'm going to open our lobby. Now as you can see inside our lobby there's a few input fields and buttons. And I'm creating a new one that I forgot to add earlier. And I'm going to be calling it name input field later on. I've duplicated a button and I'm going to be removing the button element so it doesn't work as a button. Basically it's just going to be an empty box with text in it. The other ones are functional buttons, but this one won't. So I'm just going to go over here and remove this component. It's basically just for the aesthetics. As you can see, I haven't went really wild with the aesthetics. I've just went very just functional. Accidentally grabbed the text element instead of the whole button. And I'm just going to have it above. Actually, no, I'll have it like the other ones. It doesn't matter, that's a little bit off-centered. I'm just sort of rushing because this is a tutorial. I'm going to go back into the text and change the name to enter name. Or the text, I should say. Now we're going to be creating an empty game object. And it's going to be just like before. I'm going to be calling it create and join. and inside of it I'm going to be making a script called create and join. Well, I'm struggling with typing today. It's pretty early in the morning. Now I'm going to be doing create and join. Now I'm going to create and add this script. Now I'm going to be accessing it. First of all, I'm going to be importing photon.pun. Right after I import Unity engine.ui. Pretty much the same as before. Photon.pun. We also want to put this one as pun callbacks as well, because we need some of the features inside of this class to be able to code this specific script. And down below I'll probably do a comment on what pun callbacks allows you to do, why you need it, because at the moment I can't remember off the top of my head, but I will put it down below. Then I'm going to do a public input field. Basically this will allow us to access our input fields inside the scene. This is going to be our create input, which is right next to the create button. And this will be the name of our lobbies, rooms that we create. They're called rooms, you can call them games or whatever you call them, but Photon calls them rooms. Then name input. Name input is going to be what our character's name is. In the next tutorial I'm going to show you how to use the name input to add a tag above their head that follows them. Now we're going to do public join room. Just creating a quick function, and this function is going to get used by the button when it's clicked. As soon as that button's clicked, the join button, this script is going to run. I'll show you how to connect this function to the button. We're going to do photon.automatically sync scene equal true. Basically, you cannot add this, but I would recommend you add this. Sorry about that. Basically, it makes sure all players are on the same scene forever. This is pretty useful if you are doing like a multiplayer game. That's like, I don't know, a FPS for example. You don't want them on different scenes because how will you be able to interact? Basically, this will make sure that they're always on the same scene no matter what. So if you load scene on one player, it will load for all of them. And this will help us later on by the 4th tutorial. This will be very useful because I'll be showing you how to improve the lobby and add some other special features. Just making another function called create room. And I bet you've noticed that how I've called a function called set name that doesn't exist. We're going to create this later on, so don't worry. Then we're going to do the same as for photon network dot automatically sync scene. Oh, misclicked right there. As I said before, this is very important. We don't want our players on different scenes. But if you do want your players on different scenes, then change this. Just remove this line of code. You don't have to set it to false or anything, just remove the line of code. I'm also calling that function again. I'm going to do photon network.create room this time. This of course creates a game, a room, whatever you want to call it. And as you can see, we put join input.text in there. Basically that's basically just what's the name of the room. And we of course want the name of the room to be the input you put in. So if you create a room, it'll be that name. And if you enter the same name in join, you should be able to join it. I've had no problems using this. It works completely fine. I will show you this in action later on in the video, just as proof that this does work. Public override void. I hope I'm having a little bit of lag. On joined room, you don't do on joined lobby because our character is already inside the lobby at this point. It's a little bit confusing how Photon names this all. I might do some, if anyone's struggling with this, go down below and I'll give some help if I can. Photon network.load level loads the level for all the players that are inside the current room. Basically, and you may be asking, what's the point of automatically sync scene then? That's for when you want to use something that, basically that's for when you are loading scenes using Scene Manager. Then you want to automatically sync your scene so your characters aren't on separate scenes. And we didn't use that before as our character was not already inside of a room. Now we're doing our function set name that we've added before. We want to do photon network dot local player dot nickname, and then we're going to put equal name input. So whatever we put inside of our name input, our player's nickname will be. I'll show you how to use a player's nickname later on to add game tags or their name on their health bars, etc. And now we have to place them all in these little fields on the right. And you can see it shows you all those on the right, create input. I just put the create input inside the create input, join input inside the join input, and name input inside the name input. As you can see, they've all been filled. But we are not done yet, because at the moment nothing calls those functions that we've created, so we need to add those functions to a button. We want to drag our game object inside of here, then we want to click on create and join. Then for the join button, you want to click join room. Just looking for the create room. There it is. Oh, where'd it go? There it is. Of course, we don't want to get our buttons mixed up because that would be a little weird. We want to do the same thing, drag in the game object, then we want to access the create and join script on it. Then select join room function. Now we want to click on our scenes and go back to loading. I want to save that. Then we want to run it all up again. Now it's connected to Photon. We'll enter our name. You know what? Call him Steve. Now create. Oh, something's happened. We've got a small error. It's because we have not sorted out stuff in build settings. Now we want to arrange them in the correct order. This is for later, because we'll have to call those numbers that were on the right of them. Loading. Now we got to enter our name. This time we'll actually call him Steve. Last time I changed my mind and just slapped my keyboard. As you can see in the top left, we are inside of our game scene. So we've successfully made our lobby and our loading screen. Now we want to go into scenes and access our game. And first of all, we need to make a script to spawn our players. But for now, I'm going to make our players, which is going to be a square. Yes, I'm very creative. But first, we're going to be making the ground. I'm not going to use any of my players because I'm planning to surprise you all guys with a devlog and wouldn't want to ruin anything. So we've just made a simple ground. Now we want to create our players. We're going to just call him player. And we're going to change his color so you actually can tell him between the ground. Right, now we got a blue cube. Let's go. We're going to add a box collider 2D on him. 2D because this is a 2D game. Going to add a rigid body to him, but I'm not going to be adding movement, so But I'm just going to make him fall to the floor so I can basically just show you the online element. Oh, I forgot to add a collider on the floor. Rookie mistake, but it happens. Stuck back on the... Yeah, just had to check if the collider was all good. Now we're going to create a folder called resources. It needs to be exactly like this or Photon will not like it. Photon can only use the player prefabs from resources, and resources specifically. So it needs to be exactly its name, and you need to drag your player prefab inside of there. But first we're going to make a empty game object, then we're going to call it spawn players. Because we don't want our players to already be there. Because otherwise, you put 5 cubes and there might only be 2 players, or 3 players and like 20 cubes, or like 5 players and 1 cube, etc. We need it to spawn each time there's a player that connects. So he's not really going to have any movement, he's just going to be pretty... We're just going to be showing you the basics for now. I will add a simple movement script to him in the next episode. But for now, I'm just going to be showing you purely how to make your game online. We want to do a public game object. And we're going to call it player prefab. We're going to drag our player prefab into this field in the editor once we've finished writing this script. Oh god, the F key on my keyboard, man. Come on, work for me. Alright, all done. You may be wondering why I'm spending so time to keep this all neat. It's because organization's pretty important, whereas stuff gets a mess. They want to do a public float, and this step is only for if you want random player spawns. So I'm going to do a public float max X. These will be input fields inside the editor, so you can change them inside the editor without going through the script and everything, which is very useful. And this is if you want like random player spawns, like, or if you don't want all the players to spawn in one position, want a little bit of variety. Then you want to go into start, then you want to make a vector. Vector to random position. No, I'll give it a proper name. Spawn position. And then we're going to basically use all the variables that we've set up before, all the public variables, to make a new vector, which will be our position. Random, and then we're going to set the range for the random. Normally it's 1 to 10, but we can also do this with variables. We're going to do minimum X to maximum X. But my Visual Studio is being a bit laggy. It might be because I have a lot of scripts running in the background. Sorry about that. Next tutorial will be a lot more cleaner. I was just in the middle of doing something and thought I'd make a part 2. We're going to do another one of these, but for the Y. We want to do min Y, then max Y. Just as before. Then we want to do photon. Dot instantate. I don't know how to say this, but I've also forgotten to import the photon again. Import photon, not the photon. Photon network dot instinate. I'm pretty sure that's it, but I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. But you know what I mean at least. This is it. Then we want to select what we want to actually spawn in. We're going to put dot name because it goes off the name of the thing. You can just put its name and it will spawn it, but in this way we're just making it a lot easier and more beginner friendly. And I'm going to do it pop quaternion, or whatever you call it. I hate these things. You'll know more about them the more coding you do. They're just pain. Dot identity. And then that's all it. This should now work. Just waiting for all this ready up. On spawn players. Now we're going to set these values. And of course, if you want to make it spawn in one specific position, you can just set a vector, then just make a public vector, then just set the values like that. I'll put down below in the description or comments how to do that. If anyone wants to know, just put a comment down below. I'm just using this to find out all the areas that are inside the camera to spawn him. Then I'm just adding them. Just want to grab the minimum wire. You can still follow along with this tutorial, make them spawn in one place. You can just put 0, 0, or have a really small range, so they only move a little bit. Now we remove him. We was only using him to get the values for the spawn players. Then we want to drag him into here. Then we want to click on loading again. Sometimes if you don't go to loading, there can be a few compiler errors. Like a few photon errors as well. Tons. Because it might not have connected correctly to photon the first try. As you can see, I think he may have spawned off of the screen. Oh, it needs a photon view component. Almost forgot about that. Now just go inside of your prefab and add one of these. Now, if you want to see your animations go through, my character doesn't have any animations, but if you want to put a photon animator view. But as you will see, if they do not have any animations, it will cause an error. Just want to show you guys this. I put synchronized values. There's a bunch of settings you can do to make it run smoother or more like jolty, or there's a lot of stuff you can do with that. It gets pretty in depth. That could be a whole video itself. With that, there's just a lot of experimentation. And I click synchronize position, but you can synchronize your rotation and scale using the same settings. So if you want your character to get bigger and show on the other player's screen, you of course want to click on the scale one. Just entering a quick random name. Just creating one. And look, here's our cube. Now, first things first, before we test the multiplayer aspect of a game, we're going to quickly go into our resource folder. Then we want to remove the animator view from our character. As I was recording this, I did not know that it caused an error, but if you don't have any animations, it will cause an error. Now I've removed that, everything should work perfectly. And of course, you want to keep it if your character does have an animator and animations, or otherwise your animations will not show through on another person's computer. Now you want to click Control B, and then that will come up. It will ask you where to save it. I just slapped it on my desktop, and it's going to create a copy of your game. We want to have two versions of it so we can run them at the same time. A version on your computer and a version inside of the editor. It's quickly just creating. It's normally like 20 seconds. The long ones are like 30 seconds. It's not too bad. And it's asking me to allow access because this is a new application. This will probably happen for you. And of course you want to enter your name, which doesn't really matter because it's just you. You of course want to create one because who will you be joining? Now you've started hosting one. And as you can see, the online fully does work. Now I'm going to make this smaller so you can see both screens at the same time, hopefully. I will be doing more photon stuff. Depends on how much you guys like these videos. I enjoy making these, and you subscribing will support a lot. So we're gonna just click this button. Oh, a little bit of delay. This normally happens when two versions of it are running. It's just lagging a little bit, nothing's going on. It's just because I'm doing all of this on a laptop, so it's really not ideal. There it is. Now just, you know what? Let's call him Steve. Good old Steve. Now I'm going to make this small. As you can see, I put join A, and this one's called A. And you see him drop in. It wasn't very smooth, it was a little bit unsmooth, but we can fix that in the next episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel, and good luck with Photon.